Good morning. This is a slightly delayed trip to Devon from Sheffield in my new Honda Crosstar. So let's get going.
Which also applies to close contacts. Joe Biden will convene a National Security Council meeting later to discuss tensions between Russia.
Just switch that off a sec. Right, electronic parking brake off, into gear, and off we go. Right, I can hear an engine sound, but I'm not sure whether it's... Oh, no, it's very quiet. I think the engine's ticking over though. Right, I've had to delay this journey because of the various storms, Storm Eunice being the last one, and I believe there's more storms on the way. So I want to nip down to Devon in the gap. Not in a rush to get back, but I'd like to get there, if you know what I mean. Right, so I've done just a bit about the car. It's a Honda Jazz Crosstar EVH, I think it is. It's a hybrid anyway, and it's the first hybrid I've ever had. The previous cars have all sorts of things. Peugeot 208 was the last one, which was actually my ex-wife's car that I inherited on the divorce. And then prior to that I had an X5, a Toyota Land Cruiser, and then before that about 6 or 7 RAV4s. I used to love them. So I'm kind of trading, not down, but into different kinds of car. So it's a Sunday morning, it's 7:30. When I do this trip I always like to get past Birmingham, and then after that I don't care. Birmingham can snarl up, not normally on a Sunday, but it can snarl up around the National Exhibition Centre. Right, I'm going to put cruise. Cruise control on. It's not coming on. What's that? Yeah, right. So I've got cruise. So I've set cruise control from the steering wheel. I don't know whether it's adaptive or not. So I'm on a bypass heading towards the M1, just north of Sheffield. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some talking bits like this, and then for part of the journey looking out forward. So I can honestly tell you that with the 30 miles or so that I've done in this car, it feels like a luxurious car on the inside. I mean, I think it looks nice on the outside, but it feels very luxurious. The steering wheel everything's well made, you know, the steering wheel, everything's within touching distance, so you don't have to lean over, and in the sitting position I've got this nicely set up. Probably the headrest is too far back, but I'll deal with that later. What else? The display is super, it's massive. You can put navigation on there, brilliant. In fact, which I forgot to do. Or you can use Apple CarPlay, which to be fair you can use in most cars now. But it feels luxury. There's spongy surfaces. I don't care whether these are plastic. I mean, what do you want them to be? Cushioned leather. Chesterfield. So, and the seats, the firm. Now I'm guessing it's a little bit like mattresses. If you like a firm mattress, then you'll love these seats. If you like a medium, you'll probably like these seats, but if you like a soft mattress, these are quite firm, but I'm guessing that will bed in. And it's got these little wings on, you know, it's sporty. And obviously everybody says these, you know, the Crosstar, leans a little bit more in corners. Well, most of us slow down for corners, and if you can't see what's around the corner, that's probably a good thing, whatever you're driving. So if you want a Fiesta, which is always compared to this car, a bit of a stiffer suspension, you're going to be able to corner without leaning as much. This thing leans a little bit. Well, actually, I don't know whether it does or not, because when it comes to a corner, I actually slow down. I mean, I've had a Porsche as well, and I used to slow down for corners in that. I mean, you have to be careful with those because you can lose the back end, as I have done a few times, quite easily. Usually when I'm burning off from the light, so I'm making a right complete pig's ear of it and making a fool of myself, much to the chagrin of all the people watching in their Honda Jazzes or whatever. But I have to say, this is a very comfortable car, and it belies its size. A lot of people say, you know, like kind of professional reviewers or professional YouTube reviewers, a lot of people say, you know, things like, it's, you know, it's good for a small car, or it's good for this, or it's good for that, you know, whatever. Because it's a small car. Excuse me a sec. I'm just trying to. It's the first time I've used the cruise control. I want to test adaptive cruise control on this trip. Right. So people want to. They always like proper reviewers, and this isn't a proper review. This is an owner's opinion, let's say. And I'm not, I have to admit up front, I'm not pernickety. I don't care what the colour of the car is. You spend 99% of your time sitting in it, so you can't see what colour it is. But I do accept that some people like, you know, silver mirrors, you know, colour, you know, two-tone paint, you know, blah blah blah. This is not me. So I'm giving you my opinion of someone who like, well, I don't particularly like driving. I'd rather be able to beam somewhere like they do on Star Trek. But given that we haven't got that technology yet, and I'm sure we will have in the end, although it's a bit far-fetched, I want to be able to drive in relative comfort. And I don't want to be like I used to be with the Porsche. I was in Germany at the time, and with the Porsche, you couldn't even put normal petrol in it. You have to put something, you know, higher run, I think they call it. So it's the most expensive petrol. And I did a trip from Frankfurt to Heidelberg in about 25 minutes. I think it must have averaged 170 miles an hour on the German motorway course where you're allowed to do it. I wouldn't do that in England. But anyway, you could practically see the fuel gauge moving. So a car like this, I want to be able to sit back, relax, nice cabin feel, you know, and it does feel business class, or it looks business class. So what I mean by that is it's a very plush feeling. And small cars, I'm on the M1 now, small cars tend not to be that way. And I'm guessing it's about keeping the weight down, well, not just keeping the weight down, but keeping the cost down. Because, I mean, people say this is an expensive car for its category. So what does that mean for its category? So they're comparing it to, I don't know, some sort of Volkswagens, Fiestas, you know, things like this. So effectively, cars of a similar size is what they're comparing it to. Now, who cares what category a car is in? If you need loads of room, get an estate car. If you need, you know, if you live on the mountainside, as I did in Germany, get yourself a Toyota Land Cruiser. If you live in central London, then you'd probably get an electric car, wouldn't you, these days, because of the £20 a day, I think it is, congestion charge, which is a completely ridiculous charge. I understand why they do it, but if you live there, I mean, when I lived in London, the charge only applied if you went into the charging zone. But if you lived in the charging zone, which I eventually did, then instead of paying like a £5 or £10, I think it was, you paid like £10 a month, you know. So, but now that's changed. So you're going to get something electric where they don't charge you for now. They probably will charge you eventually, because it's kind of a tax. So, sitting behind the wheel, I feel quite high up. Maybe a little bit more so than I did in the Peugeot 208, and I really did like that car. I mean, it was my ex-wife's car. However, you are a little bit higher up compared to the 208. It had tiny windows. I mean, you could see alright, obviously, looking forward, but this is like a goldfish bowl. You can see absolutely everything. You know, you don't need. I mean, this particular version of the Jazz doesn't have the blind spot sensor. You don't need it. I mean, it's got a huge mirror. A quick look over your shoulder, you can see everything that's going on. In fact, to be honest with you, I don't think there is a blind spot on this car. Looking at that, as long as you set the mirrors up correctly. So it's got cruise control, it's got lane departure, something or other control. I'm not entirely happy about using that, but the guy did say to me, right, I'm going into a 60. This is Sheffield's clean air zone. So what they do is they slow all the traffic down, pumping out even more diesel or whatever, diesel fumes, bunching up the traffic. And basically I think it's counterproductive what they're doing there. So anyway, so back to the car. So yeah, so you're sitting in it and it feels like honestly it feels like you're sitting in a BMW. I mean, the BMW X5 that I had comfort seats, so you can adjust the lumbar support, you can adjust it in a million different things, and it stored the settings in your key. So if you've got two key fobs, one for the wife, one for yourself, it stores the setting in the key fobs. So when you unlock the car, it zips around for about 10 seconds, positioning the seat, reversing it back, putting the lumbar support, whatever it is, and the little wings move as well. These things move at the side. But you know what? You know, I did set it up. I took lumbar support off because it gets on your nerves after a while. But I'm guessing if you've got some sort of backache problem, or these things kind of help you out. Fair enough. But this is very comfortable. It's got all the gadgets that my X5 had. In fact, when I got the X5, I was a little bit worried about that radar thing that they use for the adaptive cruise control. So I got them to switch that off. I mean, the manual was about that thick, so I took it down to the garage. They switched all of it off, and I didn't like the lane departure either because it didn't do it. What it did was rattle the wheel. So, which is probably a good thing. You know, if you're on a long journey, and the longest journey I've done is about 1,200 miles from Frankfurt to Gdansk. Well, about 800-900 miles, whatever it is. If you're on a journey and you're tired, stop. Well, we went there as a family and we planned so that we'd have an overnight stop. And it was a bit weird because the roads in Poland are crap. So you can whiz through Germany, and then you get to Poland and suddenly it's like you're going at a quarter of the speed that you were doing. So when we planned it so that we would we'd stay in it's like kind of a Premier Inn, I suppose, but a Polish version of it, a little bit dilapidated, but comfortable enough and clean. And it's like halfway through Poland, so we whiz through Germany, across the border, everything comes to a standstill, and then we stop after about 10 hours driving. Very comfortable car. This journey can take anywhere between 4.5 and 7 hours. It depends on the traffic. So we'll see about that. The other thing I want to see is the mileage. So I'm not going to drive heavy right-footed. I'm going to take it easy. It's a long journey, but it's very comfortable in here. No problem with that. I like the look of it, the colour. It's very bright. And these are the kind of the things that, you know, after the first month, when you buy your car, the first month, you might polish it 5 times, then you'll never polish it again for 5 years, or 3 years in my case. So you want it to be, you know, you want to focus on the stuff that will wear off. The stuff wears off. Some things wear off after about a month. Do you really care too much about the outside colour? No, not really. Are you bothered about various other gadgets that you're never going to use? I mean, I'll use cruise control. That's probably it. I think there's one of them. The dealer said one of the controls, and I think it's the lane departure. You have to, if you don't want it, or the one that controls the steering wheel to keep you in lane. If you don't want that feature, if you want to put that feature on, off, you have to keep doing it every time you get into the car and start it off. Well, what a pain in the arse that is. So, as much as I'm just going to speed up. Right, can you hear that? Right, I've seen that in reviews. Right, so I've just upped the speed on the cruise control. And up it to 70, and it gives you a roaring sound. What's going on here? Okay, I don't know. Right, so cruise control just came off then. Right, now the car sounds like it's massively over revving. And now I've seen this. I've seen this on it's not. Right, so this is what I mean by it's not a review. This is real life. I press cruise control. Right, so I've pressed cruise control, and it's not setting at, or it's setting at a lower level. I'll have to read the manual about that, because in my last car, or the last cars I've had, it sticks to whatever you set last. This doesn't seem to do that. Right, so when I put that on, then the engine started to race. Now I've seen this in reviews, and basically what they're saying is what's happening there is it's got a continuous variable transmission, so it hasn't got gears. So instead of having 6 gears, or these days 8 gears, or whatever it is, it's got like a belt, and it's supposed to give you the optimum ratio depending on whether you're driving. I don't think that technology has matured. It's been around a long time. I remember a DAF back in the 80s had this, the DAF Variomatic they used to call it. Now whether it's probably a good thing for fuel efficiency or something like that, otherwise I wouldn't use it, because it's not much good for anything else. However, does it make a difference to your driving? Well, I've only done 30 miles in this car, and that's the first time I've been up a long, steepish motorway hill, and that's the first time that's happened. But it does happen, so you need to be aware of that. Does it make any difference? No, it doesn't. It makes no difference at all. It sounds a little bit like a Porsche at a traffic light. Maybe some people are like that. Right, so this is telling me I'm averaging 39 miles to the gallon, and they claim it's around about 60 or something like that. So it's a brand new car. The engine maybe needs to loosen up. Also, that's involved a little bit of local kind of traffic, short sharp journeys, and it's showing me 39.5. So on this journey, because it's a long journey, and I'm going to do as far as I can, I'm going to do 70 miles an hour on the motorway, or less if I have to. I'm not going to speed, I never do anyway, basically I will take it easy. It's a long trip, I've got plenty of food that I've packed. I don't like to stop on any kind of journey, so I take drink with me, food, and I might have a bit of a nibble if that's allowed. Otherwise I'll stop at a service station car park and get out my sandwiches or whatever. I've got some Scotch eggs and do the bizzo. So it's 7:53 AM UK time if you're watching this from another country. I'm going to twist the camera. I probably will stop on this trip because I'll twist the camera around so that you can see a little bit of what's going forward. I'm not going to really be able to show. I haven't got one of those like GoPro things. I can't show you what I'm doing on the steering wheel, but I can do that after, and I can edit it all in. The idea of this is just to say, look, I don't know what I'm doing either. Like most people who've bought a new car, I mean, there are some people, obviously, they'll read the manual and they'll know every little detail before they even go and buy the car. I'm not one of those. I do not read the manuals. I didn't even ask him to do much of a handover because I watched a YouTube video which seemed to cover everything, but then, you forget that as well. You've got to actually experience it, do it yourself. Some kind of I don't know what that is. I better check that. There's some kind of, I think it looks like a warning. Oh, I know what it is. Lane departure. You know what? It does steer you back. It steers you back. I'm going to give this guy a bit of room because lorries have been blowing over left, right, and centre, haven't they? There's some kind of warning light that's come on. I think it's. I don't know what that is. I might have to stop at some point and check that out. It's like an orange exclamation mark and what looks like a tyre, so it might be tyre pressure. It doesn't tell you anything else. Right, so there's a guy in front of me, he's in the third lane. I'm just not going to do that because... Ah, right, I know what's happened there. That was adaptive cruise control. So it was slowing me down behind a guy who's basically sat in the third lane. So I've got, he's an old fella. So he's sitting in the third lane and I'm behind him and it's slowing down. So that must be the adaptive cruise control. Yes, it is on, there's a green symbol for that. I'm a little bit concerned about this. You can't surely already have a problem with its wheels. So you never know. It's quite blowy. I mean, most of you will know that we've had a couple of storms, Storm Dudley and Storm Eunice, or some people are saying EU nice. And we've got like kind of, I think there's a train of storms, one behind the other. So the weather's not particularly good today. But it's nowhere near as bad as it was. I mean, it was blowing over lorries and all sorts yesterday, which always makes me laugh because if you've got gusts to 80, 100 miles an hour, that's going to blow over a lorry. So why did they go? Why did they set off? You see where I'm coming from? But they do. So sooner or later the motorway gets blocked, and stuff like that. Oh, it's a fucking pain in the ass. Oh, it's a woman. Right, so now there's a couple of lorries. One's coming out. I'm going to do this now. Is it going to slow me down? No, it's not. Also, that thing doesn't flash up either. And when I say that thing, I mean if you use your indicator, it will change lanes without the lane warning lane departure indicator. Right, so that seems to have worked. I'm concerned about the if I can press that. About these things, you know, when you get something new, it works out differently. Well, I suppose I don't need to be. Well, I should be. This thing will steer me back on track if I leave. You know, if I move either side of the white line, and you can feel it. You can feel it putting the tension into the wheel. So you'd automatically know if you were leaving the lanes. You know what, I'm going to leave it there.